Hello everybody, Haku here with my review for Tower of God Chapter 382 or Season 2 Episode 302. So yeah, let's discuss it. We're finally getting Bomb versus Zahard for real. Kinda. I mean, last week we kind of had them fighting a bit, but now Bomb is actually using his own techniques. So we kind of got some cool action panels and stuff. I feel like I really liked the fight and I really like the art of it, but one thing I'm going to bring up later is that when we cut like away to some other stuff and then cut back, usually I'm the type of guy that I loves when an episode of something or a chapter of something jumps around and we get to see a bunch of different characters, but in this case it felt kind of weird. It kept feeling like we never really got anything done with any of those plot points. Okay, that's a bit far, but you know what I mean. It's like we could have gotten a lot of really cool stuff with this fight, and it would have felt like it flowed, but we cut it up a little bit too much. And again, with the stuff that we cut into it, I think we didn't get enough of the stuff we cut into it to really make it worth bringing those things in. But I'll start from the beginning. Bomb and Zahard have one core each because we have the sort of recap, and I think these were brand new panels, not just the ones used at the end of last week of Bomb taking out that core. So they're at one core each. Lecalicus, the Needle of War, gets brought out by Zahard, and we've seen Lecalicus before when he fought against Machete, and they give a backstory that he received it for passing the test of the workshop's head pupil. And it has 3 stages with 3 different colors and shapes. So right now it looks kind of like a short sword, even though it's a needle, and it's white, and it had that cool dragon attack that we've already seen. So I'm excited to see what the next 2 stages are, because I have a pretty strong feeling we're going to see the other 2 stages here. If we don't, maybe Zahard decides to do something different other than using Lecalicus, because this didn't work the first time, but I feel like we're going to see the other stages. We have a flashback to several centuries earlier. Now this fit and this worked out because we kind of start the chapter mostly from Edwan's point of view, and then we flash back to this where he remembers Yuan Sung coming to him and telling him that this exactly will happen. And he told him about the real Zahard on the outside and all that. And one quote that I think is really interesting is that Yuan Sung says God will send a disciple to punish Zahard. So there's a lot to unpack here, like why on earth does Yuan Sung know all of this centuries ahead of time? I guess that kind of gives us a clue to how old Bomb is. I think we might already kind of know because of the story of Arlen, but I don't remember the exact timeline of all that. Because I remember we've got so much information that the timeline is kind of hard to piece together anyway. So somehow Yuan Sung knew all of that. Whoever he's really loyal toward, whoever he really works for, there was some way he knew all that. There's some sort of god. I don't know if all of FUG worships that god, or if this is something that maybe it's only Yuan Sung and a few people know about. I don't know. He mentions a god, so that's sort of a weird thing. And again, we assume there's some sort of god of the tower, because it's called Tower of God. But we don't know what any of it means yet. So again, we have a lot of clues that Yuan Sung knows all this stuff, but how would he know all this stuff? That's going to be fun to find out later. He mentions that it is a fate bound together by Arlen, and Edwan mentions that the real Edwan doesn't believe in fate, but the data Edwan has chosen to believe what Yuan Sung said. Zahard then uses Lecalicus. And then we cut away from the flashback to Zahard using Lecalicus, and then this is something I don't really like. I feel like it would have been good if we just left out all of the Kun Agro Agnes stuff, at least for now, because I usually like jumping around, but I think the way that the fight was paced out, it would have been really more emotional if we had just started looking at Bomb getting stronger and Edwan being surprised and remembering that flashback, and then go straight into Bomb showing off that he's stronger, into Bomb absorbing Lecalicus right there. I thought that that would be really, really cool. And that's why I think it's a really weird place to cut away, because we're just getting back to it. Zahard unleashes an attack, and then we immediately cut away without seeing any more until we get through all of the Kun Agro Agnes stuff. But Agro Agnes is trying to provoke the mirror scale thing. Yeah, the scale. So it goes into combat mode. Androsity we see is still struggling internally with what to do about Zahard and her sworn enemy, and I like this because it's been built up a lot throughout the arc, where Andraste more and more started out like, yeah, it doesn't really bother me, it's fine, and then we see more and more, it's not fine, it does bother her. She doesn't like the snake charmer. It's obvious not only because it killed her parents, that she shouldn't like it, but it's just bearing more and more on her, and there were characters like, I believe it was Kunaguro, Agnes, or Bomb, that could obviously tell it was bothering her, to the point where now she's thinking to herself, we saw her thinking maybe an arc or two back, I mean, a title arc or two back, still on the same hidden floor area, but we saw her an arc or two back where she was thinking, everybody else just defeated their sworn enemies, and here I am, mine is just still a monkey on her back, essentially, a snake on her back. Or as she described, a snake choking her, binding her, holding her still, or whatever, that it's not directly fighting her, but it being around her, her not knowing when it might attack her friends, it is this constant burden on her, this constant strain on Andraste, and we're starting to see now that catching up to her where she's like, I don't know what to do. Bomb is gonna possibly be hurt by Zahard, but I can't do anything to harm Zahard. And again, the whole snake strangling her analogy she uses, I feel, is again to show us that she's thinking of the snake charmer in that way. He's sort of in the arc, I guess, and as a character, he's kind of this visual representation of her bond with Zahard, where she didn't want to be a princess. She doesn't want any of this. Her family was taken away from her, and now she's kind of stuck in this, and the snake binding her, the snake charmer being with her as a burden on her because she doesn't know when it's going to kill her friends. It's all kind of symbolic for her relationship with Zahard, where she's trapped like that. But yeah, either way, we then see Joaquin and Rack attacking the scale, and before we get to see anything really important, again, there was a really good panel of Rack there, and I always love the way Joaquin's attacks look. But either way, I don't really know that it needed to be in this chapter, and it felt kind of weird because before we got to really see anything there, we cut back to Bomb. So it's not... I didn't think any of the Bomb stuff was bad. I didn't think any of the Kunaguro Agnes stuff was bad. I thought it was all good. I just thought the way that it was cut together was really weird. And that's probably my only negative for the chapter, is that all of the content was good, but it was just cut together in the weirdest way I feel like CU could have done it. So I'm not quite sure about the editing here, I guess. But Bomb uses the orb to absorb Lecalicus's dragon form thing from the attack, and it kind of it reminds me of, wait, hold on, I think I got off pace with my notes. Oh yeah, one thing that I love here is that if Bomb has the dragon within him, like maybe we know that in order for something to be an ignition weapon, it has to have devils put inside it, and we don't know what kind of creatures devils are, but whatever, that's a different topic. But if Bomb just has the dragon within him, and it's the running joke continuing of Bomb just having more things shoved in him, that'll be funny. Or if it's not actually a real dragon and it's just the shape of the Shinsu, it'll be cool if Bomb can just fire off dragon-shaped blasts now, for the hell of it. So again, it'll be cool if Bomb can either use it or if it's in him. One quote that was good was that, I believe it was Edwan who said, or at least thought to himself, one or the other, only he himself is left as he devours everything. It might have been Zahard, but I think it was Edwan watching on that said that, and that reminds me a lot of what was said during his rice pot training when they saw the sun. I think in that case it wasn't saying it was something he was doing. I think it might have been the blue demon that was telling him that that was his destiny, was to devour everything and be all alone. And he was going to fight against that destiny because he wanted to be around his friends, and that's what he was struggling with a lot at the name hunt station. So again, I like that that's coming back up, and it reminds me a whole lot of that, where that's the way Zahard sees him, is he absorbed, he devoured everything, and now he himself is left alone. So Bomb now can sense his surroundings, including where the cores are. If he can do that, I don't see why Zahard wouldn't be able to do that too, but Zahard seemed surprised and said, wow, you're lucky if you keep finding cores. So either Zahard's just playing coy or whatever, and it was just wordplay from him, or that's something that Zahard can't do, which is kind of surprising to me that Bomb has this ability that Zahard doesn't. But I like, again, this coming into play because we saw Bomb sort of unconsciously activate it when he was fighting against Elaine, where he was pushed to his limit. And I said this in the live reaction, he was pushed to his limit and he started being able to see the Shinsu and everything around him and to feel it for that moment. And then that was just sort of a Bomb push to his limits thing, and now that he's activated all of these powers, now he can just do that right now. And of course he can sense that Kuhn's group isn't around right now either. He doesn't know where they went, but he knows they're not around. And yeah, the last thing that I remember is that Bomb activates the ultimate blue shield, which is like a bigger, badder form for the Blue War, and it's like basically a stage-size version of the Blue War. And Zahard says that, well, look at this kid, he's a monster, but he can't control all of that power. And then he says, you know, now I'm gonna have to really get serious. The typical bad guy thing to end the chapter on is kind of a cliffhanger. But I thought it was really good. Some things in the blog that were important. Siu said that the horns represent the red Thrissa and the blue Thrissa, and I think this is the first time we've actually heard the blue demon called a Thrissa. We may have heard it called that before, but it was, unless the translation is wrong, it was called the same thing as the red Thrissa now. So, since they are the same thing and they're a Thrissa, then what I'm thinking is the blue thing must... We don't know of any other Guardians that were destroyed, and the red Thrissa is a part of the Guardian's power. So the blue Thrissa is either, again, a part of some Guardian's power, or it's something that the god was able to bestow upon Bomb to bring him back to life. We know the blue demon, the blue Thrissa, isn't Bomb's real power. The sun is his true power. So the blue Thrissa is a power that had to have been put in him at some point, but we don't know at what point he got the blue demon. While it was with FUG, it doesn't seem that likely, because at that point they were all just focused on the thorn and stuff, and you would think that if they knew about the blue Thrissa, they might focus on that, seeing how powerful the red Thrissa was when it was in Heljo. So I would say that FUG maybe didn't know he had the blue Thrissa inside of him, whatever it is, but I think that my guess would be maybe that it is whatever was put back into him to bring him back to life when he was killed as a child. In which case it has something to do with the God of the Tower, I guess, and in which case I think it might be a Thrissa might be a type of demon. We don't know what a devil. We don't know what the devils are. All we know is that there's some sort of creature in the tower. They're not necessarily a physical thing, and they're what's put into ignition weapons to make them into ignition weapons. So maybe a Thrissa is just like a higher order of devil, you know? That's maybe a good guess there. And then that leaves it open to there being some other type other than a Thrissa. And that might play into what made Zahard evil, because we know somewhere along the line something went into Zahard and that's what made him evil. And also the King Zahard came back and put something in the data Zahard to make it evil, which, hell, maybe it's a third Thrissa. Maybe Bomb's just going to get a third Thrissa here. But maybe not. I'm not really sure, but I'm thinking that the devil or whatever within Zahard could be a Thrissa that was able to corrupt him. Maybe, maybe not. Or it may be some kind of devil other than a Thrissa, but I do think that they're all related. Because of the way, I don't know, it doesn't logically fit for them to not be related, I guess. Since the red and blue Thrissa are both called the same exact thing, they both look really similar, and yet they have to have different backstories, really. Then Siu also says that the technique of Bombs that he would like to have the most in real life is the Blue War, and I think that's probably a good hint for us as an audience as to why Bomb uses the Blue War so often and why it's so prominent, and he even uses it this chapter, is that it's something that Siu personally likes. And yeah, that was it for the blog info that I thought was particularly important. For the chapter, I enjoyed it a lot. I thought the art was awesome. I'm still going to give it a great score. I'm still giving it 9 fates out of 10. It was really good. I just think my one negative is that the way it was split apart and the places that we jumped from one scene to another were not exactly the places I would have chosen to jump from one scene to another. It seemed kind of weird, and it kind of was like whenever things were getting hype, we cut away to something else. So it's like we have this cool hype stuff going on with Joaquin and Rack, this cool hype stuff going on with Bomb and Zahard, but every time something's built up, we jump to the other scene and it's like, okay, cool, now we're getting this. But every time tension's built up, we don't really get that resolution, and then when we do cut away and we're getting that resolution, it's like, oh, that's really cool. But it would have been cooler if it just came right as it was building up, instead of like forcing a scene in between the places where it was building up, where we kind of cooled off on that particular scene. So I do think that's my one negative for it. But either way, I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Like if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of this chapter yourself, what you thought of my thoughts on it. Subscribe for more Tower of God, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated there and stuff for the channel. And if you want a link to our Discord server to talk with me or more of us there, then just ask and I can give you a link. Also for comments, I'm a bit behind because I've been so busy with everything. Just know that even if it takes me forever to get to them, I read all of them and I'm thankful for all of them. But if I don't answer right away, I will get to them eventually. Eventually might be even a week or two even, but I will get to all of the comments eventually. So if you comment, just don't think I've forgotten you. It's just that I'm really busy, and some comments are really long and take a long time to answer, and I'll get to them when I can, but I will get to them. So yeah, that's it. Unless it's a comment that's like not looking for a reply or something, it's just a statement or whatever, in which case I'll just like and favorite and everything so you know that I've read it for sure. But just you get my point. Either way, that's it. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.